Imagine waking up on the morning of the 4th of July. You step outside, ready to celebrate, and within minutes, the air feels so intensely hot, it's literally dangerous to breathe. There's no wildfire, no volcanic eruption, no nearby explosion. Just this invisible, oppressive force blanketing millions of people. In today's Explainer, we're diving into this completely staggering phenomenon and unpacking the science behind these record-breaking headlines.
You know, we really have to ask ourselves, what if this isn't just another heat wave? Forecasters are predicting that over 300 temperature records could absolutely shatter across the US. We're looking at some places hitting their hottest Independence Day in recorded history. So does this represent a permanent shift? Is this going to completely redefine how we celebrate, how we adapt, and honestly, how we're actually going to survive future summers?
Let's get right into Section 1, the invisible summer threat, danger in the air.
Now, obviously, every summer brings hot weather, right? But meteorologists are making it crystal clear that what's stretching from the Midwest to the East Coast right now is fundamentally different. The crucial tipping point here is 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're not just talking about the ambient temperature on a thermometer, we're talking about the heat index. That's what your body actually feels when you combine the raw heat with the humidity. Once the heat index pushes past that staggering 110 mark, just standing outside goes from being, a bit uncomfortable to an immediate, direct threat to human survival.
At these extreme temperatures, we start seeing cascading chaos across our infrastructure. The heat doesn't just make us sweat, it literally alters the physical environment. I mean, roads actually begin to soften and buckle under the baking sun. Power grids struggle. They're pushed to the absolute brink as millions of people blast their AC trying to stay cool. Hospitals have to actively prep for massive surges in heat-related emergencies. It forces our early survival strategies to pivot instantly toward things like rolling out emergency cooling centers and locking down severe grid protections. And the scary part? The danger doesn't just magically disappear after sunset. We're seeing a huge spike in what are called warm nights, where nighttime temperatures stay unusually high. Because your home, the city streets, and most importantly, your own body, get absolutely no chance to cool down and recover, the physical stress just compounds. If your body can't reset overnight, facing the heat again the next day becomes exponentially more dangerous.
Which perfectly brings us to Section 2, the urban heat trap, cities as batteries.
So we've looked at what this does to the human body, but let's zoom out to the city level for a second. Picture standing in the middle of a lush, shaded forest. Okay, now picture standing dead center in a massive concrete metropolis. Even if you're under the exact same sun on the exact same day, the city can be several degrees hotter. The sun obviously isn't targeting the city on purpose, so something else is happening on the ground to create this massive temperature gap. And that gap is driven by the urban heat island effect. Think about it. Materials like concrete, asphalt, and those towering glass buildings act like literal heat sponges. They soak up the sun's energy all day long, and then, slowly and steadily, they radiate that heat back out all night. This is the exact science behind why our built environments trap so much heat and create those dangerous warm nights we were just talking about.
Essentially, our cities turn into giant heat batteries. When you look at satellite images of America's largest metro areas, you aren't just seeing city blocks. You're looking at enormous, glowing hotspots. The entire infrastructure charges up with thermal energy during the day and discharges it all night long. This radically shifts the reality of urban summer living. It means we have to rethink our long-term survival strategies completely, doing things like planting vast urban canopies or switching to highly reflective building materials, just so we can safely exist in our own downtowns.
But hold on, that is only half the story. If cities are these giant heat batteries, why are rural areas experiencing impossible temperatures too? Out there, miles away from the glass skyscrapers and the sprawling asphalt, they're burning up just the same. Well, that tells us that while city design definitely makes things worse, there's a much larger macro-level force at play here.
Let's dive into Section 3, Earth's thicker blanket, a warming atmosphere.
Think of the Earth right now as being wrapped in a much thicker blanket. Now, weather has always fluctuated, and sure, heat waves have always been a thing, but the sun hasn't suddenly gotten stronger, right? It's not blasting us with more solar energy than before. Instead, as greenhouse gases build up in our atmosphere, the planet is simply storing way more of that heat. It's exactly like throwing a heavy wool blanket over your bed in the middle of July. The heat from your body, or in this case the sun, just gets absolutely trapped inside. And this builds into a very clear, highly logical chain of events. Because more heat gets trapped by the atmosphere, extreme weather naturally becomes much more likely.
It's not necessarily that every single Tuesday is a tiny bit warmer, but rather that the hottest days become significantly hotter. Heat waves drag on for longer periods, giving us way less time to recover. And ultimately, those decades-old temperature records just start falling like dominoes. This isn't some random isolated fluke, it's a completely predictable pattern.
Which brings us to our final section, changing how we live. What comes next?
If the patterns we've just mapped out keep holding true, we really have to look hard at what these trends mean for our future. For a lot of people, a record-breaking heat wave just means staying inside and feeling kind of cranky. But for older adults, young children, and outdoor workers, it is acutely, actively life-threatening. Our long-term survival strategies absolutely have to prioritize these groups. We're talking about totally shifting labor to the early morning hours, building up much better community check-in systems, and massively fortifying our cooling infrastructure to protect the most vulnerable as these conditions intensify.
Because as the warnings grow louder and those thermometers keep creeping up, America's hottest 4th of July might not hold the title for very long. The real question isn't if another record will break, but how many. If current trends continue, this extreme heat is just going to be the new baseline. Summer living is going to fundamentally change. Our daily routines, our power grids, our favorite outdoor traditions, all of it will have to adapt to a permanently hotter world.
So, I want to leave you with this to think about. Are these staggering, record-breaking temperatures really just another chapter in Earth's natural history? Or are they a blaring siren about the future we are actively building for ourselves?